I've made this video to show the workings of the suspension components and how they are assembled. I find that once I understand how things work, dismantling and repair is easier, but I found reading about F-frame forks quite complicated, as although they're quite simple in practice, they are probably not like anything else you've come across before. I hope this short film helps you orient yourself with the parts and procedures involved. So let's start with complete removed forks. If you need to know how to take the forks out of the frame, this job might not be for you. But assuming you've done that, you will need a suitable long screwdriver, a mallet, I recommend some gloves as some of the internal parts should be greasy, and a small screwdriver. Start by clamping the forks securely so you can work on them. For most forks you will need a long posi drive screwdriver, but the very earliest bikes have a slotted screw head and others may have been changed for something else in the past, so do check before you dive in there. There is no alternative but to remove this screw to separate the forks, and since this can be problematic, the first thing to do is carefully check if it will turn. I make sure the screwdriver is engaged with the screw, give it a good tap to help release the decades of grip it has, and then, while leaning on the screwdriver, try to turn it. If it moves, I turn it back again to check that it tightens up to see that I'm actually undoing it. In this case I am, so I keep unscrewing. Note that it does take a long time to undo. This one is extremely happy to come out. Nice catch, eh? Normally you'll have to upturn the forks and tip the screw out. Then you'll have to remove the brake caliper. On most forks the abutment is held in place by just the caliper bolt, but some early forks have a separate bush that will need tapping out. But either way, as the spring is also pressing on the abutment, it makes it simpler to remove if you press up on it from underneath with your thumb as you remove. This allows the abutment to be removed, followed by the long spring assembly. This has been known to be difficult to pull out if the forks are in particularly poor condition, but with these forks they simply slide out. And be ready to catch the rebound stop and spring. Again, if the forks are particularly rusty, you might find you have to work to get this out. Now you're nearly ready to separate the forks. But before we do, let's recap on what has been removed so far. The rebound spring is held in place by the rebound stop, and that assembly was secured in place by the recessed screw. Then there is the compression spring and rubber column and spring abutment, all inside the front fork guide tube. Just one more thing to do. You need to separate the steering column from the forks. I've heard that people use C-spanners or hammers to release the lower bearing retaining cup, but I do not remember finding them to be that tight, and by clamping the steering column in a workmate can grip the cup and undo. If it was tight, I would try a C-spanner before hitting it with anything, as it's only lightweight aluminium. Now the steering column can be separated from the forks. Note the lower serrated nylon bearing will detach from the steering column when it catches on the top nylon bearing as you slide them apart. Here you can see how the serrated nylon bearing is held by the steering column. And the top nylon bearing that needs to be removed next. Removing the top nylon bearing can be tricky. It's important that you clean it up as much as you can so that you can find where the circlip is split. I then use a small screwdriver to prise the circlip apart and out of the groove. Take your time over this, I doubt you can easily get another circlip of the correct size if you lose it. Once it is removed, you can lift off the nylon bearings. Here you can see the serrations of the bearing. How it fits into the steering column and is secured by the retaining cup. And how the whole assembly fits to the forks and allows the bike to be steered. Finally, remove the bellows and bellows retaining cup off the forks. That's all there is to dismantling Moulton F-frame forks. Good luck.